Israel is destroying Gaza. Can it destroy Hamas?
Well, it is certainly succeeding in destroying Gaza. I mean, it is leveling, particularly Gaza City. It is leveling the city, but it is also destroying the civilian infrastructure. It is destroying schools and hospital entrances and also the solar panels which powered the hospitals, also the water supply for the hospitals, also the bakeries. And this is clearly an effort to remove the population from the north and to force them, because, you know, there's just no food. There hasn't been bread in Gaza for some days. There's hardly any water to drink or wash. They're under continual threat from the air. This is not Hamas. These are just civilians. But Israel is threatening to level the whole of Gaza and wanting to remove, displace the entire population of the north down to the south. Now, at the same time, in Gaza, Hamas is not affected by this. It's deep underground in these tunnels. They're not sitting in the hospital. They have their own hospital about 60 meters underground. They have their own stores. They have their own mechanical equipment. And they don't, and they're at a level that is too deep for the Israelis to be able to reach them. So their main fighting force is not present. It's noticeable. We don't see dead Hamas forces. I mean, maybe one or two, but I mean, not like Ukraine. You don't see it. I mean, I know Israel claims successes, but so far Israel has not got out of its tanks and its armored personnel carriers. They like to stay well protected and not get out onto the ground. And Hamas is waiting for the right moment to engage militarily when the Israelis are forced, if they want to finish off Gaza as they say they do, that means they've got to get out house to house. And that's when we'll find them popping out of these, what I call throwaway tunnels. These are tunnels that, you know, they expect they're not deeply hidden. They're not deeply dug. They're there, and then they're just a quick exit for one or two men to get out, place an explosive device on a tank, quickly go back, shoot a rocket at it, down the tunnel, and then collapse the tunnel so that the Israelis can't use it. Finished. They'll never use it again. They'll use another tunnel. That's how it's operating.
So Haaretz, the highly regarded Israeli daily newspaper, reports 330 to 350 IDF killed. Is it possible that more IDF have been killed by Hamas than Hamas have been killed by IDF, notwithstanding Prime Minister Netanyahu's boasts to the contrary?
Yes, it's very difficult. I mean, we have to be very cautious of all these numbers that are being bandied around. But there's no doubt that the Israelis are suffering much more casualties. If you read Haaretz, you'll only see officers named or described as having been killed, no ordinary ranks. And that suggests that, you know, the numbers that they're giving, some people are presenting, are on the low side. We haven't seen any sign from the rubble or anywhere else of someone pulling out a Hamas soldier or even a weapon. I've yet to see a weapon come out of the rubble. I've watched the Jabalia camp at the other sites. You don't see that very much. No, because they're all sitting deep underground, you know, in their dormitories and all of their equipment and their excavation machinery in this huge, I mean, unparalleled, really, facilities that they've created deep underneath the ground. And so far, Israel has been unable to reach them. So the main fighting force is not engaged yet.
Two sides to this question. What is achieved by the slaughter of children and women and utter innocence? And what are the international consequences of such a slaughter?
This is the key. And this is the thing that is, I think, really that's what I described when the elephant in the room, is that this is nothing to do with destroying Hamas. Hamas is underneath the earth, far down. What it is actually making parts of the north of Gaza, first of all, the north of Gaza, unlivable. No bread, no water, no equipment, no facilities, forcing, if you like, a displacement, a cleansing of the whole of the north of Gaza. And it's quite clear from what they are saying is that this is intended really to persuade the population, to put more pressure so that they hope in due course, although there's no sign of it at the moment, they can get rid of them altogether from Gaza and into Egypt, into the Sinai Desert. Although Egypt reaffirms time and time again, no, we won't take 100, we won't take 1,000, we are not going to take any more. But at the same time, the Egyptians are getting very fed up, and they've said so now, at the way Israeli is stopping and restricting the humanitarian assistance. It's rationing it, trying to put more pressure on people to leave, and first of all, to move to the south, and then it will be more pressure on the south. There have been a displacement, but there were, my estimates, about 900,000 still in Gaza City in the north. I guess maybe 50,000 are now on their way to the south, the displacing are literally as refugees trying to get out of the bombing in the north. But the civilian loss, I mean, this is really mobilizing and, radicalizing the world, watching these videos, and the children, I mean, dying and their parents dead. And I think you've seen some of the people even playing on CNN who've come back from Gaza saying how terrible the slaughter is. It really is something very, very, I mean, this is ethnic cleansing that is taking place. This is the elephant in the room for Biden and for the United States and for Europe. They are tied to a process of ethnic cleansing, which is driving the Middle East nuts. The passions are getting higher and higher. And at the same time, what we see in Israel, increasingly, people are talking in apocalyptic terms about the future. They talk about the Palestinian civilians there as not being innocents, in the word of one cabinet member. And they're talking about what the settlers are doing in the West Bank. These are our biblical lands. Increasingly, we are seeing it turning into an eschatological debate about the biblical Israel and these people who are attacking us and killing us like the Amaleks did some thousands of years ago. So, I mean, it's becoming much, much harder for anyone to intervene when the mood turns like that. And just to be clear, over 80% of Israelis, left and right, share those sentiments about wanting to, if you like, erase all Palestinians from Gaza. I mean, eradicate all Palestinians from Gaza, because they feel there's no innocence. They're all complicit because they have had and they have nurtured a Hamas within themselves, that therefore they are party of it and they cannot claim to be non-combatants at all. So it's getting very, very much more fraught, this exercise.
If Israel is engaged in ethnic cleansing, if it is intentionally slaughtering innocents, these are clearly war crimes. Israel is using American equipment and ammunition, to say nothing of American popular, moral, political, and PR support. Is Joe Biden, is his administration, is the American government complicit in these war crimes?
What the Israelis say is, of course, they're moving these people and persuading them forcibly to go because they're starving, is for humanitarian purposes. But that's entirely bogus. This is ethnic cleansing that is taking place. And as I've tried to explain, this isn't, I mean, the war on Hamas is not involved. Hamas, 60 meters beneath the surface. They're not engaged in this at all. They're not killing Hamas. It's not saying we have to do this because, Hamas might pop up and then suddenly kill us. Hamas are not in the hospitals there. They have their own hospital buried underground, which is where they are going. So it is entirely that. And what concerns me is the time is running out for the United States and for the Biden administration, which has tied itself so closely to this operation in Gaza. Time is running out because sentiment in the United States, in Europe, but more around the world is getting impassioned about what they see, because they see it much more clearly in the rest of the world, what's happening, because it's all over their television stations 24 hours.
Is this a danger to American national security, the general international recognition of the fact that the Israeli ethnic cleansing is paid for by the U.S. taxpayer?
Of course, and that's what it's seen everywhere. I mean, whether it's in the global south, but that doesn't matter so much, but everyone sees, the airlift of heavy lift airplanes, and the United States announces it. They're sending 270 tons of new bombs to Israel, which has already dropped 25,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. And I mentioned that because in Hiroshima, the big nuclear bomb that was dropped on that was only 15 kilotons, 15,000 tons. Israel has already dropped 25,000 tons, and of course, the United States is rushing more bombs to Israel to meet its needs. And this is why the sentiment in the region is becoming dangerous in places like Iraq. And I just want to emphasize, because I know some of these people, the Hadash, which they term as sort of Iranian-linked militants, are not that at all. Some of them are. Some of them are Shi'i and are very close to Iran, very close to Iran. But many of these people are actually Sunni and Shi'i, and Sunni and Shi'i mixed. And these are Iraqi nationalists. They don't take their orders from Iran. They are militia in their own right. Some of them are very wealthy. They're well armed. And at the moment, they are attacking American bases, the 12 bases in Iraq, regularly, every day, and now are increasingly using sophisticated cruise missiles. They call it the Al-Quds 1, but it's a proper cruise missile, which is at supersonic speed. Very hard for America. It's being pushed really hard there. That's why last night the United States attacked, because they believe all these the stories that they're sort of Iran linked. They believe the stories, so they attacked bases again in Syria. The Syrians turned on their targeting mechanisms on the air defenses, but did not fire at the two F-16 or F-15 Israeli planes that crossed in and bombed these. 9 people, 9 Iranians, or 9 people associated with it were killed in these attacks. So the pressure is mounting all the time, and it's getting more dangerous and more difficult, if you like, to curb this, to curb the crease and stop it increasing. It's the same as we've seen Yemen just shoot down the Yemenis. The Houthis shot down a Reaper, a 32 million American surveillance drone. It's not unmanned, but it's a drone. But it's an expensive drone, one of the top end of them. They shot it down the other day. And in the north of Lebanon, the exchanges with Hezbollah increase all the time.
What is the purpose of the American strike forces, the aircraft carrier surrounded by other offensive ships in the Eastern Mediterranean and in the Red Sea?
Well, it's a sort of default response from the Pentagon. Let's send these big ships. I mean, actually, those big ships are the most vulnerable things. I don't know why America goes on with these huge aircraft carriers. because they're so vulnerable to modern missiles. And Hamas has modern anti-ship missiles. It has very sophisticated anti-ship missiles in its armory and has used them before. So it's not that. But I mean, what we're seeing and what the resistance, the Unified Resistance Front, as they call themselves, are doing is slowly heating up place after place: Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. It's a sort of slow, careful, managed escalatory process that is taking place to increase the pain on the United States until it does what Hassan Nasrallah said. We will not go further into this conflict, any of us, any of the unified resistance, providing Hamas is not in danger. If it is survival is threatened, then all options are open, and we will do what we think we need to do. They didn't withdraw, but for time being, but the idea that they're all wanting Iran or Hezbollah wanting to dive into a major, huge war, people have got it wrong, and therefore the aircraft carriers are irrelevant. This is a slow boiling of the American defense frog until it experiences enough pain to make sure that Israel stops the civilian deaths in Gaza. However, I don't know, and I don't think that America is able to stop Israel in its present mood, because passions are raised there, really to the height.
Here's Admiral Kirby, cut 10, Chris, on the strike groups that you've been talking about and on American national security.
You always got to be careful when you're talking about national security decisions. We've said it from the very beginning. We don't want to see any actor escalate or deepen or widen this conflict. And that is why the president has ordered 2 carrier strike groups to be close by and in the region, both in the Mediterranean and in the Gulf region. We have added air and missile defense capabilities. We've added aircraft squadrons. We have sent a very strong signal that we have significant national security interests at play here. We don't want to see anybody try to take advantage of this fight against Israel and Hamas.
Good Lord, that's the opposite of what you just said. Does he know what he's talking about?
No, I mean, and there is a real danger, because I've described some of these militia in Iraq. They are not under anyone's control. I mean, they're these people are strong Iraqi nationalists. They have a religious sanction from Al-Azhar University, from the Ayatollah, from Khamenei. Everyone has said, it's right to support religiously. It's a duty to support the Palestinians. So they have religious cover. They have money and weapons, and no one can control them. And as the thing escalates, and as the continuation of the killings and bombings in Gaza continues, any one of these groups can go and attack and cause many more deaths on some of these American bases. There are 12 or more just in Iraq. I'm not talking about in Syria. And they're not that well protected. They're not that well protected.